What is up? The Leafs Convo back in business for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario. OakRidgeFord.com. Norman London, Mike in Buffalo. The new NHL season has begun. The Leafs a 5-4 winner over the Habs in overtime, happening at Scotiabank Arena in Toronto. Mr. Augello, your thoughts?
Good morning, Norm. Well, you could tell that these teams only had a 10-day training camp. I think Sheldon Keefe, after the game, there was some criticism of some of the performances, and I think he tried to defend his team and say, we didn't have any preseason games. This is unusual. We're not going to draw any conclusions from the performance last night. But it was on both sides. I think it was a entertaining game, but as we know, entertaining and quality don't usually go hand in hand. It was a game. I think there was some defensive faux pas. There were some situations that I think contributed to goals against. But in the end, the Leafs offense, was able to cover up some of their mistakes, and they win in overtime on the Morgan Rielly goal.
This is the Leafs Convo podcast for Oak Ridge Ford, 2.9% on F-150 2021 styles, the hottest selling vehicle in North America right now. It's hard for us to keep our hands on them because every time we get them in, we move them out. That's financing and leasing. You can get at me and I'll give you some more information about that. These teams are just getting started, right? William Nylander, 2 goals and an assist, the first star of the game. Man, that shot is pretty deadly. He looks like he's pretty locked in and very efficient with his play. John Tavares, 3 points. Mitch Marner with a point. Austin Matthews with a point. Points scattered throughout the roster. These guys doing what they were expected to do and need to do from the get-go. 2 for 4 on the power play, which is encouraging.
The focus of the offseason was, adding depth and providing support players for the core group. It doesn't change the fact that the core group is going to have to produce on most nights for this team to win. And yesterday, I didn't think Matthews and Marner were particularly strong, and you could see what Keefe was doing in terms of, Thornton played on the first line for most of the first period, and then occasionally Zach Hyman would be introduced on that top line, and I think that's what's going to happen. You're going to see Thornton sort of taking a shift off here or there because, he's 41 years old. But that line of VC, Tavares, and Nylander, I think, was the best line of the night.
Sure.
VC made an error on too many men on the ice call in the first period that cost him a goal, but he scored later in the game to tie it, and I thought he was pretty strong. But in the end, like I said, it's going to be Rielly, Matthews, Marner, Tavares, Nylander, and as they goes the fortunes of the Leafs.
We know the first line with Marner and Matthews on it primarily will take on the bulk of the minutes, most of the minutes, with Tavares and Nylander, the de facto personnel on the second line, playing anywhere to 18 to 20 minutes per game. They were sensational in the opener. Are you expecting to hear calls, especially from William Nylander's contingent of fans, for more ice time for those guys? And do you think that that's what's required if they're playing really well, or can we look at it from a different perspective and say, within that realm, these guys produce. We pay Matthews and Marner the big money. Those guys are going to have to play the most ice time night in and night out, whether they're performing at a top level or not.
Yeah, I don't think Sheldon Keefe is going to make a habit of playing Matthews and Marner 25 minutes like they did. It was something around there last night. It was the first game. I think the situation in terms of trailing in the second period 3-1 and getting 3 power plays at the end of the period contributed to the amount of minutes that they played, and then going in a 3-on-3 in overtime, you're not going to play Alexander Barabanov or Wayne Simmonds in a 3-on-3 overtime. You're going to play your best players and roll them. So I think that's that's unusual, but I do think that you're going to see an equal distribution of time between Tavares and Matthews. They'll probably be close to 20 minutes. And depending on the flow of the game, the other players will get their opportunities. But I do think that Keefe is going to have sort of a very delicate balancing act here, because he's got to factor that, the playing time of his core guys, but then he also has to factor in limiting the minutes of guys like Thornton and Spezza, who are older, and then he knows that they will be more effective with shorter ice time and being able to
Mhm.
provide 100% energy in those times. So that's the thing. I think you're going to see a mix of players in this lineup. You could see players drop out for a game or two, players come up for a game or two. That's going to be something that I think we're going to see the Leafs do.
Hey, he's the mix master. You have the pieces. How do you apply them? Joe Thornton, do you give him a B, a B plus in his debut? And again, we have to take everything he does with a grain of salt and put it into context. He is the elder statesman on the team.
Well, I didn't think he fell behind the play. I mean, we know he's not the quickest player in the
Yeah.
world, but I thought he stayed up with the play, and he set up Marner on a good scoring opportunity. I didn't think he was bad. I didn't think he was great, but it's a first game, and again, you don't want to draw any conclusions negatively or positively. So I think you're going to see him on that line in probably in one of the games against Ottawa, maybe back-to-back games. Thornton doesn't play one of the two games.
Mm-hmm.
It could be something like that. But in terms of the other players, I mean, after the game, almost every player said that the fight that Wayne Simmonds got with Ben Sherratt was the turning point of the game. And sometimes it's a trite hockey thing. Oh, the fight turned. The
Who
fight did
cares?
turn around the game.
Yeah.
Well, no. I think it's a positive. I mean, that's attacking people who say that that's not the case. But clearly, when the players are saying that was the case,
Mm-hmm.
that lit a fire under them, and then he drew the penalty from Sherratt. They got a goal on that. Then they tied the game on a 5-on-3. It was a key moment in that game.
Yeah, and he was waving at the bench, telling the guys to get their heads out of their asses. And whether that's indeed what happened is up for debate. It looked like that's what happened, and we can go with that. I'm excited and encouraged about the presence of Wayne Simmonds on this team because he's got his own motivation for being with the Maple Leafs. It's a hometown team, yada, 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 big deal. He wants to win a Stanley Cup. And in this unique season that we're finally embarking on, maybe the Leafs can win a Stanley Cup. Just a couple minutes before we go, just checking over the stats. The Habs winning all the hustle stats, the hits, blocks, of course, giving away the puck. The Leafs out hit 2-1 over that 2.5-1. Is that any cause for concern, or do you think these guys are just going to play efficiently? They're going to get hit.
Well, we saw what Montreal did in the offseason, and we expected them to play sort of a Claude Julien heavy type of game, and they did. Josh Anderson, when healthy, is a very effective forward. We saw, Suzuki look really good, and that's a key for them to have a young guy be creative and be able to score. But I think their defense was pretty good. But the Leafs are never going to hit anybody. They just need enough pushback to keep those teams honest and say, okay, you can hit us, you can push us. We're gonna push back. And again, that's what Simmonds did. But also, I think one of the key moments was Austin Matthews cross-checking in response to Sherratt, cross-checking Sherratt. Sherratt was basically smiling at him, and that was he's trying to get under the skin of the Leaf star forward. And then later in the third period, he cross-checked him again, and it seemed to hurt Matthews a bit. I was saying to somebody, Matthews, Tavares, I mean, maybe not Tavares because he's firmly established. At some point, Matthews is going to maybe strategically have to snap and whack somebody with his stick and slash somebody. Remember Boreas Salming did in the 70s. He was beaten up constantly by the Philadelphia Flyers, the Broad Street Bullies. And then at a certain point, he said, I'm just going to be a surgeon with my stick.
Yep.
And he started carving people up. And, he may get suspended for a game or two, but it'll teach players to stay away from him. And I think Matthews is getting to the point now at 22, 23 years old. He's a big kid. He is going to impose his physical will, and some of these teams are going to push back on him, and he's going to have to push back again.
OG's converts, what do you think about what Mike just said? Does Austin Matthews need to get more physical and take charge with an incident? Maybe not an illegal one, but one that's emphatic? Or do you think his game, the way it is right now, is fine? Hey, Mike, before we go, Freddie Anderson picked up a point in the Leafs 5-4 overtime win over Les Rats in Toronto. What's your take on the way he minded in that? He gave up 4 goals, and with Freddie in the past, 1 minute he looks like Ken Dryden, the next minute he looks like Alan Bester.
I didn't think he was particularly strong, but he did make the big save in the overtime. But again, I'll go back to what Sheldon Keefe said. I can't really be judgmental and draw conclusions on one game. We'll see, and we know Anderson's always traditionally been a slow starter. It doesn't matter that it's January right now. When it's October and the season starts, he's never had good opening months. It's going to be key for him to shake that off, because with a 56 game schedule, you're going to have to play better. And he's likely going to split the next 2 games between them and the Senators and Canada with Jack Campbell. So, he's going to get his opportunity, but I didn't think he was particularly sharp. But then I think as the game went along, he played better. And Carey Price wasn't particularly sharp either. Mm-hmm. So, I think it was that way all around. And with most of the games that I watched, there was a lot of rust out there. So I think probably everybody should keep their knives sharpened, but in their back pocket, because it's not ready to really criticize.
And hey, was I unnecessarily shitting on Alan Bester there?
No, please, Alan Bester deserves the criticism for all time after allowing that Sergio Momesso goal in overtime against St. Louis from outside the blue line. So I think that'll be burned in the memory of Leaf fans of a certain generation. So I'm nothing personal against Alan Bester, but he's not in my top 30 Leaf goalies of all time.
And when his battery mate Ken Reggett was making unbelievable glove saves on Gino Cavallini, it makes him look a lot worse. OGs, converts, get to community on the Leafs Convo YouTube channel. Let us know what you're thinking. Let's talk about Austin Matthews. I want your impressions on the Leafs opener, what you're thinking about the Leafs and how they're going to play in the games ahead. William Nylander, fantastic in game 1 of the season. Is this guy going to lead the way? Because he looks like he is absolutely dialed in, picking up where he left off last season. We're 30 subscribers away from 3,000 on the YouTube channel. That's a really low amount of subscribers compared to the number of listeners we get on a monthly basis and overall. Hey, I'm not complaining about it, but we'd love for you to subscribe to the podcast, like this post while you're listening right now. Please tell your friends about it. Mike and I are into season 3 of the Leafs Convo on YouTube and every podcast platform you can think of. It's our honor. We love spending this time with you. For Mike, I'm Norm. We'll talk to you soon.